And we'll be back. This is Man Means Business. Be the fast to know and move on with the details regarding business across the country and the world. Keep up to speed and keep updated with what is happening across the business world. And amongst that, we keep you up to speed with the business reports that is happening. And this particular moment, we turn our eyes to the business reports as the financial, we talk financial data security. With public entities and company managers have been urged to register with Data Protection Unit or else face financial penalties. Baker Birukuja, Manager Data Protection Unit, says that every data collector, data processor or data controller is required to register with the Personal Data Protection Office as stipulated by the regulation of the Data Protection and Privacy Regulations. Pedison Mumbere has
digital financial providers.
The Personal Data Protection Office is Uganda's independent data protection authority. It is established as an independent office under the National Information Technology Authority, Uganda NITAU, responsible for overseeing the implementation and enforcing of the Data Protection and Privacy Act No. 9 of the 2019. In an interview with the Smart 24 television, Baker Birukuja, Manager Data Protection Unit, says that some public entities will face financial penalties if they fail to register with the unit.
Data Protection and Privacy Act penalizes every person, be it public or private, that hasn't registered. We can, through courts of law, impose a financial penalty on the company, but it doesn't stop there. The implications also go to the individual. You know, the person who should have advised the company and they do not comply. This starts with, you know, either the MD, Managing Director, Executive Director, or Permanent Secretary for public officials. They can be arrested and taken to courts of law and then arrested. So you can see the implications are actually grave.
He notes that every data collector, data processor and data controller is required to register with the Personal Data Protection Office as stipulated by regulation of the Data Protection and Privacy Regulations.
It should register. For starters, it's a legal requirement. The Data Protection and Privacy Act requires every person, public body or private sector collecting and using personal information to register with us. Now, why the registration is important is beyond just being a legal requirement, it helps these entities, you know, fulfill the other obligations or responsibilities imposed by the Data Protection and Privacy Act. Because anyone, when they collect your information, the law gives you the right of asking them for copies of that information, but even telling you whoever they've shared it with. So registration covers those areas. You know, it helps the company know which information you collect, whether from employees, from your customers, or even people who visit. Because, you know, guests or visitors, there is a visitor's book. Nowadays, they take your temperature and it's recorded against your name. So this registration helps them to have that bird's eye view of what you collect, how long you keep it, how you secure it, so that when we give you the certificate of registration, when you go to the other areas of the law, it makes it easier for you. You know, it will be easy to let people know with whom you share it with and what you use it for and those related aspects.
Data Protection Office supervises and monitors data collectors, data processors, data controllers, and data subjects on all matters related to the Data Protection and Privacy Act 2019. It has well set, monitor, and regulate standards for personal data protection and privacy. Asked whether registration of the entities can prevent the selling of the personal data without consent, Baker said that it can partly help.
Completely stop it because registration is just a step, but it can help. How? When a company registers and we know the person in charge of compliance, the point of contact. Now, when we receive a complaint that you believe your information has been sold by this company, us as the regulator, it's easier to reach out to that person to take action, as opposed to just a company operating out there. We don't know you, we don't know who to contact, and we just issue a letter. there it makes compliance and taking action a little bit harder. But now about the selling, I should also highlight the Act, the Data Protection and Privacy Act, makes it an offense to actually sell personal data. Though it adds an exception, it can only be sold where the owner of that information has consented. You could say, you want to sell my information, let's enter into an agreement so that, we share the benefits. That is the only exception, short of which.
Article 27 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda 1995 introduces the right to privacy, stating that no person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of the person's home, correspondences, communication, or other property.
Looking that we almost cover the entire economy of Uganda. The office has been around for close to now 7 months. So those that have started the journey of registration, they are slightly over 500. But of course, those who are required to register who are non-compliant are more. So we are reaching out gradually to make it easier for them. Banks, almost about 98% of the commercial banks have registered. Then also the other sector that has been picking up with registration, from the insurance sector, they've started picking up. Then also hotels, they are picking up. Of course, hotels pick up your details, how long you're going to stay, in which room where you're going, and all those related aspects. But even education institutions, they've been gradually registering, and also NGOs.
The NITAU's main responsibility is to ensure that every data collector, controller and processor, or any other person collecting or processing data complies with the principles of data protection and the Act. Bedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
Well, the Personal Data Protection Office in Uganda's Independent Data Protection Authority was established as an independent office under the National Information Technology Authority Uganda, that is NITA Uganda, and responsible for the overseeing and implementation of the enforcement of the Data Protection and Privacy Act number 9 of 2019. And when you look at the situations here, Data Protection Office coordinates and supervises and monitors data collectors, data processors, then the data controllers and data subjects on all matters relating Data Protection and Privacy Act. 29, depending on the data, it is a Privacy Act of 2019, which was well set to monitor and regulate the standards of personal data and protection units, as well as making sure that there is privacy of a person, because everybody is entitled to privacy. When you look at the Article 27 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda 1995, as introduces the right to privacy. In this particular constitution, there is the right to privacy, stating that no person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of the person's home, correspondence, communication, or any other property that belongs to an individual. So privacy, we're all entitled to privacy, and with an era of social media, we can all agree that the issue regarding scammers that have actually reports coming in from police that we've had an online scam going on, online theft and all that, people losing their documents via online platforms, among us the key worries in there. NITA Uganda's main responsibility is to ensure that every data collector, as well as data controller, data processor, or any other person collecting or processing data complies with the principles of data protection and the act that follows suit regarding data protection. So as a matter of fact, when we look at the situation here, is that the public entities, company managers, have been urged to register with the Data Protection Unit, or else face financial penalties. With this, there will be safe, and it will be more safer for them to store and keep their data intact, or keep their information intact, as a way of protecting and as a way of protecting oneself away from the risks that may be attached to losing data, as well as to anything to do with online scam and anyone interfering with with anything of that. Well, pretty much regarding data and scam, it brings us to the ICT ministry that got in touch with the telecommunication companies, and among us, some of the key issues that they were talking about is pretty much network issues and all that to do with quality services. Meanwhile, as the ICT Parliamentary Committee met the telecom companies to exhaust and explain why quality of services is still a challenge, as well as the cost of data and mobile money charges are high, in a bid to reduce the telecom poor quality services across the country, telecom companies expressed what makes their work difficult. As during the committee, the telecom companies expressed their challenges they face while delivering services. For example, having much traffic on one highway and having fewer towers across the country. And amongst the other issue that they touched was delayed licensing is affecting the quality of their services. Let's have the details of this story.
In a bid to reduce the telecom poor quality services across the country, telecom companies have expressed what makes their work difficult. During a committee, the telecom companies expressed their challenges they face while delivering services. For example, having much traffic on one highway and a few towers across the country. The CEO of MTN says telecom works as a highway, and if there is too much traffic, the quality will be poor. So to improve its world means to build the other towers to have more highways so as the signals are better.
And that are carrying that traffic. There are two ways of improving the quality of service. Either you build another highway next to the highway which is already there. That would mean you build another tower, because one highway would basically be one tower. So today the average distance, like in the wider Kampala area, today is like 200, 300 meters distance, one tower to another tower. Every 200-300 meters there is a tower. So one way of improving, the quality is to build more towers.
On the data pricing, telecom companies urged that the government should reduce taxes on the smartphones so that many people can buy them so as to use data, and that's the only way prices will be reduced. At the moment, it said 20% of the population use smartphones, which means that there is low consumption of data, which makes it expensive to the few people using it.
On average, we only have 1 out of 3 of our customers that have a smartphone, that are using data. Only 1 out of 3. In Kenya, Chairman, it is already more than 2 out of 3. So why is that? Because the smartphone is expensive. It is not the data that is expensive. It is the smartphone. The device that you need to consume your data, that one is expensive. And it is a big challenge for us, and we both have embarked on device financing. Okay? For customers, 300,000 shilling, 400,000 shilling to get a smartphone. It is not possible. It's too expensive. So what do? We give the smartphone for 100,000 shilling, and then you pay every week or every day or every month a certain installment for you to be able to get access to that smartphone. Because paying 400,000 out of the pocket, it's too much. So we need to put device financing.
On the issues of poor network upcountry, members of parliament on the committee have shown concerns over poor network in their areas, yet it is a service that is supposed to be beneficial to all people in the country.
Taking this chance to tell you that even upcountry things are not well at all. Network is a struggle. You have to climb trees up to this edge, as if we are stone edge, and also you have to look for a spot where you get network. And when you see people struggling, meaning there is market.
Cliffs, so accessibility is not easy. And we have masts in our region, but sometimes the masts are put on the top of a hill. But you find in the valley, the network is very poor. So that is one of the challenges that we are facing in the whole region of Sendai. I would like also to...
In response from the telecom companies, the delayed licensing for importing masts in rural areas caused poor network in these areas, but according to the need, they will see the most needy areas and prioritize according to the members of parliament.
So to get authorization to build a tower is becoming more and more challenging. There is NEMA, yes, but there is also civil aviation. There are the municipalities, KCCA plus others that have to give their authorization. So everybody wants the perfect network, but nobody wants a tower in their garden. Okay.
We do receive requests from the members of parliament. We work with UCC to look at those areas, and like we mentioned, we prioritize. We also have an obligation to roll out 90% geographical coverage in the country. Last year alone, we did a total of 292 sites, and we are continuing to roll out new sites. 960 is our target.
The Vice Chairperson, ICT Committee, Honorable Nathan Samson Igeme Nabeta, Member of Parliament, Ginger South East, says they will follow up to see that the issues of the network are resolved so as people to get quality services.
From the point of view of the citizens, they were saying most of them don't have network. So they were here explaining to us the rollout plans they have. The new licensing regime with UCC requires them to cover 90% of the country. And so they are going to ensure that they cover 90% of the country, and they're working on it. So we are going to visit them to actually see how they're rolling out, which areas, how they are prioritizing the rollout for the network, so that we can be able to help where necessary in terms of permits and sensitization of the people who are also afraid of the masts, who think that the masts are not healthy buildings near themselves.
City Committee. Honorable Nathan Samson Igeme Nabeta also mentions on the issue of the masts. I still feel not only most of the individuals there, but I also grew up having fear living around the masts. And in most cases, these myths attached to it, as people say, these masts are risky to life, the healthy related factors against living next to the masts, as a matter of fact. So with the situation here, there is poor network upcountry mainly, but then to some telecommunication companies as well, there is also poor network accessibility. If you look at this here, when you look at the situation here in town areas, in most cases, we have a very huge challenge with some of the network, the telecommunication companies here in the country, as some of them do not reach some of the areas, even here in the city areas. So also the issue regarding how best can people up country get the best quality of the internet and get the best quality of the network, that aside from the internet part of it, because when we look at also how best the economy will grow into a digital one, as economies are greatly driving into the e-commerce sector, and so is Uganda's economy. So greatly, when we look at that, these are among the key issues that we need to also tackle a little bit to understand how best can we make good use of these telecommunication networks. But surprisingly, and according to the telecommunication companies, they say that the delayed licensing has also affected the quality of the services. They've also said that there is still a challenge, as well as issues regarding, when you look at the situation here, there's a few towers across the country, as well as traffic on one highway. This is technology, not just trying as much as we can to bring it out here. The CEO of MTN said telecoms work as a highway. Now this is where the highway comes in. That if there's too much traffic on the same floor of the technology, the quality will be poor. And also when you look at some of the regions in the country whereby there are many internet users or there are many telephone users, that happens a lot. And that aside, also television stations. We have challenges whereby television stations do not reach certain regions, whereby some people do not have signals to some, even with the fact that there is digital migration. So it is actually becoming another huge challenge out there in dissemination of information. that aside, also look at the radio stations. Very few radio stations have a wide reach of the whole country, as most of them do change, as others have actually opted for online services, or others actually having apps whereby people just go into the Google, or others go to the App Store to actually download these apps and eventually try as much as they can to access these radio stations and all that. So regarding the same matter here, we are still in the struggle for digital migration, as the ICT ministry is actually seeking for more money to see that they can actually complete the digital migration that started way back in 2015, to see that all TV stations are on through the Signet. These are free-to-air decoders and all that. So when you clearly look at that, as we are trying to struggle and upbeat the backwardness that we can definitely attach in courts, to say that maybe Uganda is still backward a little bit in regards to digital migration. These are among the key issues that we need to touch. And meeting with the telecommunication companies, all these were some of the things that were talked about, as according to the ministry, on the issue of data pricing, telecom companies came out and asked the government to reduce the taxes on the smartphones, because they believe if the taxes on smartphones are reduced, then many people can buy them so as to use data, and that's the only way prices will be reduced. So for the telecom companies, they feel government should reduce on the taxes on smartphones. Then after that, if that is pulled off, then they can also decrease on the data bundles in there. Well, that's a funny one, I would say. Well, with that, conversations regarding business do continue. But when you look at the situation here as well, on the issues of poor network up country, the members of parliament on the committee, on the ICT committee, showed their concerns over poor network in these areas. Yet, it is a service that is supposed to be beneficial to all the people in the country. Like I said, if we ever want to pull off the digital migration, and if we ever want to succeed at digitizing, these are some of the key issues that we need to tackle. And with all that, well, and lastly, in response from the telecom companies, the delayed licensing for putting masts in rural areas has caused poor network in these areas. But according to the need, they will see the most needy areas. According to the Ministry of ICT, they will see the most needy areas and prioritize and see how best they can do this. Well, with that, we do take a break. After the break, we have more conversations regarding business. Stick around.